old colleagues, Mike Stanek, former councilman, and he's also the CEO and owner of Hunt Imaging and Cleveland Cycle Tours. So Mike, if you'd want to step up here, and I've asked Mike to come in, and he sits on the governor's board representing COSI. He's appointed by the governor dealing with the Medical Marijuana Advisory Committee. So he has been updated on information on what they're working on, where they're headed, and I thought it would be good to have him come in here because we do have to make a decision within the next 2 months. And so I asked Mike to give us an update, and then when he's done, any questions you'd like to ask, we can go from there. So Mike, welcome, and thanks for coming down this evening.
My pleasure, Mr. O'Donnell. It's great to be back in the environment here. I didn't make a formal presentation to bring. I thought it would be better to maybe just share a brief overview of where we are and then answer your questions rather than bore you with a lot of information that wouldn't be germane. So the medical marijuana is scheduled to be by law active and available for sale as of September 8th, 2018. It's, when we started this 2 years ago, it looked like we had plenty of time, and like everything, time flies by, and all of a sudden you realize that you're having to run faster than you thought you'd have to make a deadline. There's a number of, I think there's 9 sets of rules and regulations that have been established. All the rules and regulations are in place now. The cultivators, the growers, those applications have been returned. They've gone out. There will be 24 grow sites across the state, 12 which will be large growers, which will be maximum of 25,000 square feet each, and 12 growers that will be small growers, maximum of 3,000 square feet. The rationale was to give smaller companies the same opportunity to get into the business as large companies. For those 24 sites, we received a total of 185 applications. And applications for the large sites, there's a $20,000 non-refundable application fee, $2,000 for the small sites. So there was about $2.3 million we took in just on application fees alone. Those 24 cultivators then will feed 40 processors, and those 40 processors will feed 60 dispensaries across the state. Now those numbers can grow in the future once we see what the demand is. This committee that I'm a part of, there are 14 members on that. We're scheduled to be an active committee for 5 years. We just finished year 1, so we're just scratching the surface right now. To jump back a little bit too, that committee, the 14 members were appointed by various people. The governor had some appointments, this Senate President, Senate Majority Leader, and same on the House side. And each appointee has a specific role on that board. The role that I serve is to represent the employers across the state. There's quite a number of protections that were given to employers as far as their ability to maintain a drug-free workplace policy, et cetera, that was in the bill as it was written and passed. And so my role is to make sure that those stay there and stay strong for the benefit of the employers and their employees. The applications for dispensaries are going to be accepted in November. Those just got put out there. So they will be accepted, I believe, starting November 3rd. The Northeast District, and it's kind of dark, but essentially, if you look at where Lorain County is, Lorain, Medina, Wayne, and Holmes County, I should say the Northeast region, and Lorain, Medina, Wayne, and Holmes make up a district within that region. That district is only going to have 3 dispensaries within those 4 counties. So I know there's at least 2 or 3 companies who have applied to have a dispensary in Elyria or are planning on applying to have them in Elyria. I'm sure there's many others, but within those 4 counties, there's only going to be 3. So, and part of the decision-making on who gets those dispensaries is trying to spread them out within the geographic area so that as many people as possible. I think the goal was to have everyone in the state within 35 miles of a dispensary. I'm not sure how close that's going to come, but so I'd be surprised if any one of those counties had more than one. So, you know, as far as Avon Lake being in the far north part of that that district, you know, would it be beneficial for someone to place a dispensary in Avon Lake? Probably not. As we're always challenged with retail here, it'd be the same with this type of retail. You know, they want to be where they could draw from a, you know, the fish don't buy much of anything, even medical marijuana. So, you know, those are the districts as they're laid out for our region. Again, these can grow. We you know, there could be, if there's a demand, there could be double this many. There could be double the number of cultivators, double the number of processors. Processors still haven't been chosen. We suspect that a number of the cultivators will also be processing locations, which is allowed by law. None of them can be dispensaries. They have to be separate. No doctor can be an owner of a dispensary. Doctors have to be licensed or registered, I guess is the right term, registered to be able to give a recommendation for medical marijuana. There will be no prescriptions for medical marijuana because it's still a Schedule I federal drug. There will be a recommendation given. In order for a physician to receive certification to give a recommendation for it, he or she has to go through a 2-hour training course and also has to have 2 hours of continuing education each year to maintain that certification. Those are 2 hours not in addition to their other continuing ed requirements, but as a part of however many hours that they currently need to maintain their licensing. I think the other, I mean, that's generally where we're at. There's a lot of unknown. We're still feeling our way through this process. The decisions are for which applications are going to be accepted is being done by an outside independent party that the state has hired. There is a seed to sale system that everyone along the pathway will participate in. So every seed that's planted to grow a marijuana plant in Ohio will be tracked all the way through the growing, the processing, and the sale of the material. There is no smoking of marijuana in Ohio. It can be vaped, it can be tinctures, it can be made into food products, it can be plant parts, but it cannot be smoked. And all vaping devices that are sold cannot allow combustion of the medical marijuana. So that's a general overview. I'm sure there are specific questions related either to the law or to situation here in Avon Lake, so I'd be happy to take those.
Thank you. John?
Obviously, you hear all kinds of stories, half of which probably aren't true, but that there's certain doctors, especially let's just say in San Francisco, that you just basically, they use the fog on a mirror test. If you came in and breathed on a mirror and it fogged up, why they would give you a recommendation. And so it was really a hollow requirement. But can you speak to that any more? I know you said there's still a lot of unknowns, and maybe this is still one of them.
I can certainly attempt to speak to that. All of that will be under the purview of the state medical board. There is a part of the law as written that states that in order to prescribe, the physician has to have an ongoing relationship with the patient. There are 20 or 21 specific conditions under which medical marijuana may be recommended. The patient has to meet one of those. Although, you know, one of those is chronic pain, so that's sometimes difficult to ascertain. But there has to be an ongoing relationship with the physician. Also, all of the recommendations will be tracked under the ORS system, which is the pharmacy, the State Board of Pharmacy's tracking system for prescriptions across the state that keeps people from getting an opioid prescription, filling it at pharmacy A, and quickly going down the street and get it filled at pharmacy B as well. The dispensing of the medical marijuana will all be tracked in that ORS system.
Dan?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mike, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Always, thank you.
You had mentioned that your role on the board is to oversee how this would impact businesses and their ability to maintain a drug-free workplace. Can you expand on that a little bit and talk about what some of those protections are, and then if they're applicable to local governments, county governments, townships, things like that?
Yeah, and certainly, as you know, I'm not an attorney, so.
Good for you.
Oh, yeah. Well, always have to give that disclaimer. The biggest protection, I think, is that any employer, and I don't know for a fact, but I believe the city, being an employer, would fall under the same rule, is that any employer can have a drug-free workplace policy that disallows their employees to participate in the taking of medical marijuana. And so even if that employee were to get a recommendation from a physician, he or she would be subject to dismissal by the employer, and the employer would be protected from any repercussions from the employee. And so the recommendation that seems to be given most, and the one that I am giving to employers, is to speak to your legal counsel and make sure that you have a policy in place that they're comfortable fits within the framework, that particular framework. And it appears to be pretty ironclad.
Thank you. It is time for absentee ballots, and you can order your absentee ballot online from the Lorraine County Board of Elections, and you can actually read what the language is that you would be voting on so that you can vote in your kitchen. The rules are that the Board of Election needs to receive the request for an absentee ballot 3 days prior to the election. And when you fill out your form, this is a general election, so mark it as general, not primary or special. It's a general election, and the date of the election is November 7th. Thank you very much.
Thank you.